This is Cakewalk Next, quite literally the next chapter in the Cakewalk story. Hi folks, I'm Mike, and I hope you're well. Cakewalk will soon be splitting into two separate products. Cakewalk Sonar, which will carry on the tradition of a fully fledged DAW, and Cakewalk Next, which takes on a much lighter, simpler approach to music production. You can see Cakewalk Next running here on a Mac. It also runs on PC. Let's take a look. On first look, you'd be forgiven for thinking that Cakewalk Next drew at least some inspiration from its online cousin, BandLab Studio, and indeed both applications share some resources. However, as we'll find out later, there's still some advantages to having a local offline DAW. But like BandLab Studio, we have this one simple view where we're mostly looking at and editing our tracks. Now, tracks can include both audio and MIDI. When I say MIDI, I'm really talking about MIDI for virtual instruments. At the moment, Cakewalk Next can't control outboard gear like MIDI synthesizers. Now, I feel this might be by design and in keeping with the spirit of this application, which is probably aimed at bedroom producers who want to have a simple approach to music production and most likely don't have a whole load of gear. Now, as well as the tracks that we can see here, you'll also see some horizontal lines going across the screen. This is for automation. Now, not only can we automate simple things like volume and panning, but we can also automate things like parameters of plugins that we're using. Now, before we move on, I just want to quickly mention that I actually created this track by exporting from Cakewalk Sonar and then into Cakewalk Next using the new file format they've got to exchange files from one of these DAWs to the other. Now, it's not perfect. It doesn't include absolutely everything, but it's a great way of getting started in this DAW. Double clicking on a track reveals the track inspector at the bottom of the screen. Now, on the left of the track inspector, we see our routing options, including sends to buses. On the right, we see what I think is one of the main advantages of a local desktop DAW, and that's the ability to use plugins. Now, in this case, there are 3 VST plugins that I'm using, but if you're on the Mac, you can also use AU plugins. Now, there's 2 different types of plugins being used here. The first one is a virtual instrument. If I open it up, you can see that I'm using Ample Sounds, Ample Bass J. The other 2 are effects from Universal Audio and from FabFilter. But one of the nice things here is I don't have to keep opening up my plugins because many of the main parameters are exposed right here in these panels. I think that's a great workflow advantage. Double clicking on a MIDI clip reveals the clip inspector, or what some of you will think of as the piano roll view. Now, I have to say up front, this is a fairly simple editor. There's not lots of advanced MIDI features here. Of course, the basics are covered though. You can move notes around, you can change their length, etc. If you want to change their velocity, you can just click on this little icon here. It shows the velocity. Of course, the colors of the notes are indicating their velocity as well. If you want to draw new notes in, you can do that, and you can use that with a step editor as well if you want to. And if you want to control some of the other basic MIDI parameters, you can just click on this one here and you can reveal things, like pitch bend, modulation, etc. As I say, it doesn't have any really advanced features, but I feel again that is in keeping with the spirit of this application, which is a fairly simplified approach to music production. Now, right at the top of the screen, you may have noticed the arranger lane here. You can see that I have set up my intro, my verses, bridge, chorus, etc. And if I double click on the left, I can open up the arrangement inspector. Here are the sections that I created. I can now use those, drag them down to the bottom for different arrangements, and try out different orders of my song. You can set up multiple arrangements, as you can see here, and it's really a very easy tool to use. Everything's kind of drag and drop and works as you would expect it to, and really quite powerful as a composition tool. Also at the top, you may have noticed there's a lyrics lane. Now, if I double click on this, it opens up the lyrics inspector. On the right hand side, you can see the sort of plain text lyrics, which I copied and pasted from a Word document. Now, if I highlight some of these lyrics, I can add them over to the list on the left hand side, and you can see that they've appeared here. If I click on those, you can see them at the top of the screen in the lane, and I can move those around to whatever position they need to be in time. Now, when I want to display my lyrics, perhaps for the singer to see, etc., I can click on this little icon here and it displays the lyrics, and when I play the song, it highlights which lyrics are being used.
When you're hurting, I'm hurting too. When you're laughing, I'll laugh with you.
One of the things I really like about Cakewalk Next is what we can do with folders. I'm going to select 4 tracks here. They're all female backing vocals, and I'm going to press Control G, that would be Command G on Mac, to start the process of moving them to a new folder. I'll click on yes, the folder is created. Of course, we could rename it, recolor it, etc., and I can expand it here to see the contents. Now, if I press on the solo button for the folder, then of course we're only going to hear the contents of that folder when we play. Let's have a listen.
Until you're there and we are through.
And as you can hear, all of those female backing vocals are completely dry. So what if I want to have reverb on all of them? Well, what I like is I can now double click on the folder to open up the track inspector, and I can either apply a reverb plugin, which will get applied to all of those tracks inside, or I can send them off to a bus. I'll do that now. I'll just send them off to this vocal reverb bus. We can have a listen.
Until you're there and we are through.
Now, not only that, but I can also click on the individual tracks and I can add inserts or do sends for those individual tracks as well. Really versatile, nice and easy to use, and I kind of wish they had the same feature in Cakewalk Sonar. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Cakewalk Next shares some resources with the online BandLab Studio. If we press F5 on our keyboard, we reveal the loop browser where we can select loops and one-shots. We can audition some of these just by pressing on the play button. So for example here. And if I was happy with that, I can go into the collection, audition individual beats. And if I'm happy with that, I can then just drag it out onto my project like so, and it'll match the tempo of my project. And I can just drag the right side out and then just loop it for as long as I need it to loop for. One of the track types is a sampler track. I can just add it up here, go down to sampler, click on that, and you'll see it appears at the track inspector at the bottom. Now I can go over to my browser on the right and select from one of these collections. I'll go for a vocal collection this time. Just go into this one. I'll just audition that first one. Yeah, that's fine. And I'll just grab that and drag it and drop it into my sampler. Now, as I play keys on my piano keyboard, you can hear it plays at different pitches. I can adjust when the sample starts here, for example, because there's a bit of a gap at the beginning there. Try that again. And you can edit that in various ways. So that's the sampler track, but there's other ways of using these loops and one-shots. We can also insert a pad controller track. If I go to the top left here, click on plus, go down to pad controller, and you can see this pad controller has appeared at the bottom here. I've basically got 16 different pads that I can drag all kinds of things onto. So on the right hand side in my loop browser, I've already drilled into one of the collections here. There's some one shots that I've got to select from here. So I'll just grab this kick and drag it onto the first pad here. You can see that the X sampler panel has appeared to the right. This is where I can actually sort of do the similar sort of edits to this sample that I did before when I was just using this as a single sampler. I'll go ahead and grab something like a snare and drop that onto the second one there, and I can play those from my MIDI keyboard. You can see you can build up your own kit there. Really handy. When you record it, it's just going to be a MIDI style track up the top here with the tracks. Another track type that we can create is an instrument rack. I'll go up to add an instrument rack up here. We can see it down at the bottom, and from here I can add in various instruments. So I'll start off by, let's go for my lovely Piano Tech 8 piano. We'll pop that in there. That's the first instrument. Sounds like this. Okay, we'll close that. I'll then add in, you know, I love B3 organs. I'll just search for B3 organs. There's one there. I don't know which one it is, but that's fine. I'll just add it in there. And now as I play my piano keyboard, you can hear both instruments, and you can continue to add more instruments on here. Really great if you want to layer instruments that are all playing the same part. If I double click on my acoustic guitar track, you can see at the bottom here, I've got it set up with a preamp plugin, an EQ plugin, and a compressor plugin. And I rather like that setup as a kind of a standard thing for acoustic guitar. Now, if I want to use that in other projects, I can do it easily using track templates. I'm going to right click on my track and go down to export track template. I'm just going to leave the information in there. I'm just going to tag it with Mike there and click on export. Okay, now if I want to create another track just like that one, I could scroll all the way down to the bottom here, right click, and then go to insert. Let me just find it, track template, and we can see the tag Mike here and acoustic guitar. I'll click on that. It's created that new track down there, and if I open it up, you can see that, you know, it's got it named, the icons there, and it's got all of the effects that I was previously using. One of the really interesting things you can do is take a full stereo mix like the one I've got here and separate it out into stems. Let's just have a quick listen to it. And I guess Superman. So there's a whole bunch of things happening there, right? So I'm going to right click on it, go down to separate into stems. Now I could choose to separate the vocals, bass, drums, etc., but I'll make it simple on this occasion and just isolate the drums. So I click on that and I click on proceed. It actually uploads the track before it actually processes it. And once that is done, it asks you to create stem tracks. I'll do that now. It creates a folder here, separated stems, and you can see there's 2 tracks in there, drums and basically everything apart from the drums. Let's just solo that drum track and have a listen. Job done. Really interesting, huh? Don't forget, this is only the second proper video on this brand new channel. In order for it to be sustainable, I really need you to subscribe and like right away. And it's also super helpful if you leave a comment right now and let me know what you think about this new variant of Cakewalk. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.